Hello everybody, today I'd like to talk about this absolutely fantastic model of Gorgosaurus from the Beasts of the Mesozoic, which I unboxed in my last video. So I've got a few of this Tyrannosaur series. Given the size and the cost constraints, this is my third one. I also have the Utyrannus and the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Actually I've got the 135 special edition of the T-Rex as well. But this one, when I first saw the promotional images of this particular figure, I knew I just had to have this one in the collection because, I mean, the patterns and the shape, the design of this whole figure, I was just completely captured by it, as I'm sure probably quite a lot of you were. I did, of course, get this from Everything Dinosaur. So, unboxing this creature, it did actually totally blow my mind in a lot of ways, and here's Tallulah coming to pay us a visit. Apart from the fact that, you know, there's been a significant change in the way that they're engineered to allow a far greater degree of flexibility than was afforded in the previous waves. You know, this middle section here, the whole thing flexes in and out, and this whole neck section's a lot more flexible than it was in the Tyrannosaurus Rex or the Utyrannus, which had quite limited movement there. They've removed the sort of cowl, the sort of hoodie effect that you get with the Big Rex. I still think the Big Rex is one of the best figures ever made, and if you can stretch to afford that figure, that 118 version, I completely recommend that. So, there have been some engineering changes. It's mostly still the same. You still get a flexible wire in the very end of the tail. You still get sort of ball and socket joints in all the other parts, which allow for quite a significant degree of motion. As you can see, I've got the tail on here. This is a minor issue I do have with this figure, and it's the same with the big T-Rex as well, that once you've got the tail on, sometimes it can be a little bit easy to dislodge it, but really the degree of flexibility you get in it and the posability is really, really very good. You know, and considering there's only, you know, 2-3 joints there, and the movement in the wire in the tail. The movement in the body's absolutely fantastic, allows for a tremendous degree of posability. Movement in the jaws is really good, you get a good wide jaw opening there, and I don't know if you can see the detailing, and you look straight down the eyes of the Gorgosaurus here, but the way the mouth is painted inside with this lovely lustre, and the eyes have got this fantastic lustre on them as well, which really brings them to life, and as you can see, they are incredibly neatly painted. There's a slight difference here as well with the ear holes. In the T-Rex, the ear holes go straight through to the articulation of the jaw, so you can kind of see the scaly jaws moving underneath, which is an interesting effect actually, but I do think I prefer the way they've done it on the Gorgosaurus here. A lot of movement in these tiny little arms and these absolutely minute little wrists, as you can see, and the shape of the fingers is anatomically correct to this particular family. Length of the limbs, I've got the limbs fully moving now as well. Just takes a little bit of hot water treatment sometimes. You can see the way this Tyrannosaurid is proportioned is very accurate to the source material. What I would love to know is, if anybody can tell me, is why is the head this shape? I've never seen a Gorgosaurus with a head sub-rectangular like this, that always looks sort of sub-triangular. And the only specimen I've seen, and I've looked into this, that's got sort of sub-rectangular head, is the one that was on display in the University of Manchester for a while, so I'm not entirely sure where they've got this skull shape from, and I would love to know if anybody can tell me. The horns aren't particularly pronounced either, but you know, that's by the by. You get an awful lot of individual variation in different species. I do apologise. So, anyway, getting back to the dinosaur, Tallulah's trying to steal the show here. Some interesting design choices they've made here. They've increased the horn all the way along to the length of the nose. It's kind of folded over the end of the ridge of the nose here, and you've got these sort of fleshy nostrils, which is an interesting touch. It's quite bird-like. The detailing on the face is very, very fine indeed, and especially around the eyes. I like the way the eyes on this one don't look like they're sunken particularly. There's lots of lovely little folds and wrinkles around the eye itself, which is much like what you see in modern birds, but there's nothing over the top. Same with the skin on the jaw. The detailing in the skin on the jaw here is absolutely lovely. And yes, there is a little bit of a line here where the paint doesn't sort of quite blend into the gold and the blues of the head. it really doesn't detract from the aesthetic of the figure at all. I love the way they've given it this sort of carunculated, almost vulture-like skin down the back of the neck, because these things, you know, they like to indulge in a bit of face biting and neck biting, so it would make sense for them to have a bit more skin around the back of the neck just for a bit of protection, never mind anything else. The scale details are lovely, the little hexagonal scales there. Detailing of scales isn't something I worry too much about when it comes to scale, because I think it is just nice to see some texture on a figure. There's no ribs showing or anything like that. It's not over muscled, it's also not over fleshed, which is nice to see. This is a nice lean take on this particular Tyrannosaurid, which was a lanky runner. There is a juvenile specimen of Gorgosaurus known, of course, and it does show the same sort of features as other young Tyrannosaurids. Although there is a little bit of contention with Nanotyrannus and Tyrannosaurus rex at the minute. I mean, whatever the result and the outcome of that ultimately is, young Tyrannosaurids were shaped proportionally slightly differently to the adults. So this young Gorgosaurus that's known has got relatively longer legs, and I think it's carried through to Gorgosaurus in some ways. It had a finer head than the Daspletosaurus it was contemporaneous with. So anyway, moving down to further details, you can see it's got a bit of a throat pouch here, and you can see this gorgeous sort of salmon pink colour picked out on the throat, which really sort of gives it a really nice touch. It's almost like a display feature. And these sort of greyish beige undertones on the underside of the stomach. It's all just blended really, really nicely along here, along the jaws and into the throat. The patterns themselves are beautifully painted. The production values of this figure really are extremely high, and the same goes for, you know, the individual components you can then remove to add on. So you can see it's got very bird-like feet and scales sculpted down the ankles here. This also goes for the alternative lower legs, which you see the limbs pop off without too much effort, and then the spares pop on again without too much effort. You'll notice there's sometimes a little bit of paint over spillage on these. It just wears off. It's not an issue. So I'll just get that into that socket there. It can be quite tough to do, but since you won't be doing this all the time, it really isn't going to be a problem. I certainly don't do it with mine. I tend to keep the articulated limbs on the bottom, the fully articulated limbs, just because I like to. What you'll also find with this figure as well is that it does tend to stand upright on the articulated limbs as well. There's a bit of a rock on the ankle, but really this figure does balance quite well without the sort of unarticulated lower limb on. So it's a really, really well designed figure. Of course, you get the interchangeable feet as well, same as you do with the other members of the beasts, the Mesozoic Tyrannosaurid family. So these are just the standard sort of flat standing feet you've got on here. You also get the stepping foot, so you can see that one's curved. What you'll also notice is they're still flat on the back, so I think when the sculptor sculpted these, what they did was take the original foot file and simply put a flex on it, so you don't kind of get that bulging of the fleshy pads that you would. It's still flat on the bottom that you would in life, but with the aesthetic of that figure that really doesn't matter. You know, as a really niggling point, I cannot get this one on. They do go on, I promise you. You, stealing the show, young lady. You, trouble. You notice? Yes, you are. So then, of course, you get the raised foot as well. So if you want to position the limb with that foot back, you can, if you can get it on in the first place. It's very good that these do lock as tightly as they do, because you're certainly not going to lose any bits. What I've found with these figures is that I have ended up with a big box of feet and lower leg bits from, you know, the big Rex and the Tyrannos that I also have. That's just by the by to keep those spares in. I'll put the proper foot there, it is. So, I mean, in terms of the aesthetics of the figure and the quality and the production values, they really are. You can't really beat the beasts of the Mesozoic. I know they're expensive, but they really are totally worth the effort of, you know, saving up and getting one, because you'll not get anything else of the kind of level of detail and care that goes into making these, you know, and they really do make themselves worth the price that is charged for them. Great looking forward to the Cyberzoic ones. So of course we've got it here with Styracosaurus, which it was contemporaneous with. I do find the colours on this one incredibly jarring for a large animal, I must say, but it's just an absolutely stunning figure. So here you have your size comparison of your Gorgosaurus and your Styracosaurus. The only other Gorgosaurus figure I have is this funny little one from Papo. This one does have a slightly more sort of triangular head as well. It's quite good for it, apart from the fact it's a beautiful sculpt, and you know, I mean, Papo figures, the production values are extraordinary as well. But it has got that very prominent crest in front of the eyes. It's the only Gorgosaurus I've got. As you can see, there's a huge size difference here. And then if you wanted to see it compared to, let's say, a human figure, because I mean he is. We've got Hondo here, who is of course in scale with Gorgosaurus, gives you an idea of exactly how gigantic this animal was. Also I've got, where have you gone? I've also got Sabine here, Sabine from, of course, Ahsoka series. Shows you how large a human being compared to Gorgosaurus would be. The skull's about 3 feet long. I would imagine this figure is going to be about the same size as the Allosaurus from Cyberzoic when that's released. A little love cat on there gives you an idea about how big a cat would be. So overall, if you can get this figure, I mean, there's absolutely hours of playability with this. I mean, it comes with a base as well, and that base can be used for, you know, diorama purposes. It doesn't necessarily need to be perched on the base, fastened to the peg, because it will simply stand on the base as well, and it can certainly be used for environmental building and for displaying your figures. But yeah, highly recommend this figure. I mean, I've not put it down since I got it. It really is an absolute beauty. It's still got the articulated tongue in there as well. I mean, there's everything about this is really, really classy. So I hope you've enjoyed having a look at this figure with me, and despite the cat, I hope to see you in the next video, or maybe because charming. It's lovely to feel loved, and I hope to see you all in the next one.